Hello. Today we are exploring Japan's indigenous spirit, Shōchū. Now, Shochu is a Japanese spirit made from a variety of raw materials, and its origins date back to the arrival of distillation techniques in Japan in the early 1600s. Let's take a deeper look. Like many global spirit categories, modern Shochu is broadly divided into two legally defined subcategories. First, we have column-distilled Shochu, which accounts for nearly half of all production. This style is distilled to an almost vodka-like high strength using a continuous column still. The raw materials for this style are typically fermentable sugars like molasses, or sometimes corn, tapioca, and wheat. Following a rapid 3 to 4 day fermentation, the liquid is distilled up to a legal maximum of 95% ABV, producing a clean, relatively neutral spirit that is typically diluted and bottled at 20 to 25% ABV. It's light, low in price, and heavily consumed locally. But in this lecture, we are focusing on the second, far more complex category, pot-distilled Shochu, specifically Honkaku Shochu and Awamori. These spirits are distilled to a relatively low strength using a single pot still distillation, resulting in distinct aromas and textures that beautifully express their raw materials. Most of these artisanal spirits are crafted in the southwest of Japan on the island of Kyushu and down through the Ryukyu island chain to Okinawa. Before we look at how it is made, we have to understand what legally makes a spirit Shochu. The Japanese National Tax Agency defines the production regulations and labeling terms very strictly, often specifically to distinguish Shochu from other global spirit categories. For instance, to separate it from whiskey, Shochu cannot be made from malted or germinated grains. Furthermore, if the Shochu is aged in oak, there is a strict color intensity limit. The final spirit cannot exceed a color equivalent to pale lemon. To distinguish it from brandy, Shochu cannot be made from fruits or fruit juices. To keep it distinct from rum, it cannot be made entirely from sugarcane products. And to separate it from vodka, the law forbids the use of birch charcoal filtration. And to distinguish it from gin, Shochu cannot be infused with other ingredients or essences during or after distillation. The laws also dictate bottling strengths. There is no legally specified minimum, but the final bottling strength must be no more than 45% ABV for single pot distilled Shochu and 36% ABV for column distilled Shochu. Finally, a small amount of sugar or other permitted ingredients that add up to 2% of the total volume can be added to slightly sweeten some products. So, what goes into Honkaku Shochu and Awamori? The primary raw materials include sweet potato, barley, rice, and brown sugar, though other grains like buckwheat are occasionally used. Awamori specifically is an ancient style that must be made entirely from long grain rice. Now, because these raw materials, aside from brown sugar, contain complex starches rather than simple fermentable sugars, they require specific preparation. For grains like barley and rice, this involves a meticulous 3-stage process of polishing, washing, and steaming. Polishing is crucial. Once the grain is harvested and the husk removed, it is repeatedly passed through rotating stones. This strips away the bran layer and the outer part of the endosperm, which contains the highest concentration of sulfur compounds. Now, why is this so important? Because unlike Scottish or American distillers who use copper stills to remove unpleasant sulfur compounds, Shochu distillers use stainless steel stills, which cannot pull sulfur out of the vapors. Therefore, the sulfur must be physically polished away before fermentation even begins. After polishing, the grains are washed to remove dust, soaked to adjust moisture levels and steamed in a large rotating drum to gelatinize the starches. Now, sweet potatoes undergo a similar preparation. They are washed, cut into evenly sized pieces, steamed to gelatinize their starch, and then crushed before fermentation. Now we reach the absolute heart of shochu production, Koji. By law, all shochu distillers must use Koji. Koji is a starchy material, usually polished white rice, on which amylase-producing mold has been grown. The mold spores are sprinkled onto steamed rice, and over the course of 2 days, the mold grows and secretes enzymes. Now, distillers use 3 main strains of Koji mold: yellow, white, and black, each impacting the final style differently. Our black Koji mold, for example, produces high levels of citric acid and creates distinctive smoky aromas. And unlike whiskey distillers who convert starch to sugar in a mash tun before fermentation, shochu distillers use parallel fermentation. This means the amylase enzymes from the Koji convert the starch into sugar at the exact same time as the yeast converts that sugar into alcohol. There are 2 main ways to do this. The first is the one-stage parallel semi-solid state fermentation. This is used exclusively for Awamori. Because Awamori is made from 100% Koji, all of the Koji, water, and yeast are mixed together at once into a porridge-like texture. The black Koji provides so much citric acid that it immediately creates a safe, highly acidic environment to protect the yeast from spoilage. This fermentation takes about 2 weeks and can yield an alcoholic liquid between 14 and up to 20% ABV. Our second method is the 2-stage parallel fermentation. This is typically used for Honkaku shochu. Distillers making Honkaku usually want to avoid the heavy, smoky aromas of black Koji, so they use white or yellow Koji and less of it overall. Because they're using less Koji, there is less protective acid. To prevent spoilage, they start with a small first stage batch of just water, Koji, and yeast. After 5 to 6 days, a healthy, massive yeast population has grown in this acidic starter. Then comes the second stage, where the main ingredient, likely steamed sweet potatoes or barley, is added to the vessel for another 8 to 10 days. This second ingredient actually defines the legal category of the shochu. Now, once fermentation is complete, the liquid, which remember is about 14 to 20% ABV, is ready for distillation. Legally, Honkaku shochu and Awamori must use a single pot still distillation. And as we mentioned earlier, these pot stills are typically made of stainless steel rather than traditional copper. Now, this isn't just a cost-saving measure, it's more of an engineering necessity. Many of these stills are designed to operate with a partial vacuum inside, and stainless steel is strong enough to withstand the immense difference in pressure between the inside and outside of the still without collapsing. Now, our stills are heated by steam, either injected directly or applied indirectly through an internal coil. Now, these can, of course, trigger flavor-creating Maillard reactions. The distiller will then collect the heart cut at less than 45% ABV, and interestingly, the heads and tails are usually discarded and not recycled into the next batch. Now, the use of a vacuum in the still is a game changer for flavor. Lowering the pressure inside the still significantly lowers the boiling points of the alcohol and the flavor compounds, but they don't all lower at the same rate. In a vacuum, heavier, harsher components, our group 3 fractions, become even less volatile, making it much easier for the distiller to separate them from the delicate heart cut. This allows producers to create exceptionally light, fruity, and floral styles of spirit. Now, following distillation, the shochu is rested. If the spirit is stored in cool conditions, Heavy compounds like fusel alcohols and fatty acids will rise to the surface to form an oily layer, which the distiller carefully can skim off. Alternatively, they might use chill filtration or activated charcoal to even further soften the spirit's texture. Most Honkaku Shochu undergoes maturation in large, unglazed earthenware pots known as Kome. These pots are sealed but still porous, allowing for slow oxidative maturation that develops deep, complex flavors over months or even years. Our lighter styles might be stored in neutral stainless steel tanks. Now, oak is rarely used, but when it is, the spirit's color is, again, strictly policed by the pale lemon limit. So what do these spirits actually taste like? Well, let's break down the major styles. First, sweet potato shochu, or imo. This is produced mostly in the Kagoshima and Miyazaki prefectures, and this style uses various local sweet potatoes. The traditional style is earthy, oily, and rich, while modern innovations have created imo shochus that are intensely fruital and floral, bursting with aromas of muscat grapes, lychee, and citrus peel. Next is barley shochu, or mugi, famous in Oita and Miyazaki. Its flavor depends entirely on the still. Atmospheric distillation yields a rich toasted cereal aroma, while vacuum distillation creates a delicately fruity spirit. Then we have rice shochu, or Kome, primarily from Kumamoto Prefecture. These are generally lighter in flavor than barley shochu, offering a subtle, elegant fruitiness. And then down in the Amami Islands, they produce brown sugar shochu, or Kokutō. Legally, this must still use rice koji to provide yeast ingredients. This is usually unaged, and it features grassy and fruity aromas reminiscent of rum agricole, but with a softer texture. When this is aged, it takes on the mellow depth of a pale rum. And then finally, we travel to Okinawa for Awamori. This is made exclusively from long grain rice, completely converted into black koji. Awamori is renowned for its pungent, smoky aromas and incredible ability to age for many years, creating profound complexity. So our shochu is a spirit category built on profound contradictions. It uses ancient, mold-driven fermentation techniques right alongside highly technical, vacuum pressurized stainless steel distillation. It operates under incredibly strict laws designed to protect its identity, yet offers an astonishing variety of flavor, from toasted cereal and earthy potato to smoky rice and lychee fruitiness. And whether you're exploring a deeply aged Awamori from Okinawa or a light vacuum distilled barley shochu from Kyushu, Honkaku Shochu offers a tasting experience completely unique in the world of spirits. So next time you have the opportunity, skip the continuous column dilution and ask for a pour of single pot distilled Japanese history. Thanks for watching. Cheers.